Hi, my name is Taylor Joyner, and the title of my article is Psychological Symptoms as Long-Term Consequences of War Experiences. And I chose to write about PTSD and research this topic because I had always had a lot of respect for people that fought for our country, and I'd always had a lot of compassion and sympathy towards those who were not mentally in the same capacity that they were when they left to go fight for us. And so I always thought that PTSD was very interesting, and I always felt a lot of compassion for them because I can't believe some of the stuff that they've had to see. And, I really would love to see all of our veterans, overcome this disease and find ways to prevent it. And so I thought it'd be a really interesting thing to study. So, a lot of the authors actually in this article had written other articles that were in the literature cited section of the paper. So it was clear that they had done research on this before and they really knew what they were talking about. And I really never seen that before where you had cited an author within the paper that you're writing. So I thought that was pretty cool. And so the type of literature used, there was print and web articles. I kind of separated them into two different categories. So there was statistical research, so like percentages of people that get PTSD or the average age or the average number of years fought overseas before they get PTSD. So that was a lot of statistical stuff on one side. Then on the other side, there was a lot of lifestyle research. So just kind of observing people with PTSD or interviews with people that had worked with PTSD victims or people that had PTSD or just kind of observations about how people with the disorder kind of function in everyday life in different situations. And so that was two different kinds of, articles and research that were cited in the references and in the literature cited and review section of the paper. And there was no secondary sources. All of the literature they used was from a scholarly journal or a professional in the field. There was no anything from Time magazine or a war website or magazine or anything like that. And so the literature used was from a lot of different types of, sources and areas you could find research on. So a couple of the articles used to write this paper were from the Harvard Program of Refugee Trauma. And so I thought anything from Harvard kind of is going to be top notch and it's going to be very useful and valuable. There was a lot of articles from psychology journals, psychiatry journals. There was some experimental studies done by researchers in the field, and there was also some interviews with neuropsychiatric professionals that had dealt with patients that had PTSD and had seen it on an everyday basis. And the citation style, I noticed it was APA, which is what I expected. It was the way that the references were set up, the way the paper was written, the spacing, the headings, everything was APA, and so that was a really clear indication of the style used. They had over 30 references, and one thing that I found different that I hadn't seen very often was instead of referencing the author of the literature that they're citing, they actually gave every reference a number, and they would cite the number. So it would say, I'm looking at a sentence now, the end of it says mental disorders are defined as diagnostic categories, and then it has a bracket, and then a 6, and then another bracket. And so it doesn't have the author's name or page number or year or anything like that. So I thought that was very different in the citation style. And so looking at the literature that they used, they had a lot of very well-educated people that were writing these. They were peer-reviewed. They were in scholarly journals. They were published in, really prestigious journals and books. And I think this paper, along with all the literature that they used to write this paper, would be a great reference to have when searching for PTSD materials in my own research.